Hey everyone, welcome to Kempner Canucks. My name is Rev Trev. So glad you're here because today we're diving into another top 10 list. Top 10 Canucks defensemen. Now, listen, it is so fun making these lists. I know it's a lot of work, but man, I've been having a blast and I've been appreciating the comments. If you haven't seen my top 10 goalies list, please check it out. I would love for you to do that. And I'm getting so many good comments and people just reminiscing. It's been really, really fun. So this is just my opinion on my top 10 list. I'd really encourage you to put your top 10 in the comments. I'd love to see who you have listed there. And so some of them you might be like, say what? And other ones you might be like, okay, that makes total sense. So let's have some fun together with this. Now, you're already watching. If you comment, all you need to do is one more thing. Hit that subscribe button and you are going to do the Rev Trev hat trick, so I want to encourage you to do that. Okay, now I just want to give a premise. There's some people on here that probably deserve consideration, but I did not put them on my top 10, and I'll tell you why. Now, first one is Dennis Cairns. He is fourth in scoring in Canuck history, but his plus minus was minus 155. Like, I'm sorry, that just is too much. You're not going to make my top 10 list like that. For example, Garth Butcher, another great Canucks defenseman, minus 119 plus minus. I just can't put those guys in my top 10. Okay, so who's in my top 10? Number 10, Harold Snepsts. Harold Snepsts, he played 781 games. He had 195 points only, but he was a defensive defenseman. He was 6'3", 210 pounds, and he was the second in Canucks D for penalty minutes with 1,446 penalty minutes, only behind Garth Butcher, who had 1,668 penalty minutes. It was like these guys were rough, tough guys, right? So Harold's physical and error-free kind of playing game made him a fan favorite in Vancouver, and he was selected to the NHL All-Star Game twice, 1977, 1982, and he was named the club's top defender in those years, 4 out of 5 years, and after playing for a decade. Now, by the way, 1982, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. After playing for a decade with the Canucks, in 1984, he was traded to the Minnesota Wild. But in 1988, he re-signed back in Vancouver. Listen, he played 17 full seasons in the NHL. 12 of them were with the Vancouver Canucks. And so he appeared in over 1,000 NHL games. He was one of the last players not to wear a helmet. How did he not wear a helmet and not get injured? I have no idea. He was in 2011 named in the Ring of Honor for Vancouver, and that's why he is my number 10. Number 9 is Chris Tanev. Now, some of you are like, really? That's kind of surprising. Listen, this should be no surprise because Chris Tanev is an absolute warrior. He's a shot blocking king. He played 400 less games than Alex Edler and became a second place in block shots with 1,050 block shots in his career. Every team needs a Chris Tanev type defenseman on their roster, and the reason why he was plagued with injuries, but it's because he went into the tough areas. He fought every game in the way of battling for the puck and getting those block shots. I mean, that takes a toll on the body. And we appreciated all of his effort. And listen, he was not only a true warrior, but Canucks fans still talk about, we wish we had Tanev on our team, or we need a Tanev type player on our team. And that's why he's my number 9. Well, at number 8, it is Sami Salo. He is known for his massive slap shot, and teams did not want to get in front of that howitzer that was coming on the power play. He was always that big shot defenseman on the power play. He was so effective that he led the Canucks in defensive scoring on the power play with 48 goals. That's crazy. Like it was incredible. Not only did he have 48 goals, 20 of those goals were game-winning goals. Imagine that. 20 game-winning goals in your career and as a defenseman, and 7 of those were in overtime. No wonder the fans love Sami Salo. He played big time in those big moment games, right? And so, okay, but my friends and I know him the most, and we actually refer to him as One Nut. Yeah, it's true. He got hit in the testicles and lost a testicle, had to get one of them removed. Not only that, I mean, that would have taken me out, right? I would have been like, I'm good, I'm calling it a year. No, he came back from that injury and played in the playoffs with one nut. Think about this for a moment. Now, I wouldn't have done that, but we probably shouldn't have played him. I remember that series very well, and I think we probably end up losing that series because he couldn't skate, and no discredit to him. Like, honestly, like, he tried his best. He couldn't skate like he normally could, recovering from that injury. But I don't know about you. I don't care what anyone says. If you lose a nut and you still play, and you play in the playoffs, you deserve to be on the top 10 list. He is my number 8. At number 7, it's Doug Lidster. Doug Lidster was born in Kamloops, BC. He's a BC boy, and he was drafted in the 7th round by the Vancouver Canucks. He played those 10 years with us and was known for his offensive skills, and he ended up 5th all-time as Canucks scoring defenseman with 307 points. Now, Lidster was a good player on some really, really bad Canuck teams. Here's a crazy story about Lidster. He was traded to the New York Rangers. I don't know if you remember that, but that was in the expansion year, and we traded him for John Van Beesbroek so that we could protect Kirk McLean from that expansion draft, and that we would end up keeping Kay Whitmore, right? And so, are you kidding me? We should have. John Van Beesbroek was pretty good. Anyways, he ended up going to the Rangers and playing against us in the Stanley Cup Finals. In fact, he scored 2 goals against us in the Cup Finals. And they ended up winning, as we know. And he tells a story, is that as he was going through that line, shaking hands, and even though he had this incredible time with the Rangers and won a Stanley Cup, he realized that he knew the Canucks players so much better, and they were friends of his compared to the guys that were on the Rangers. And that's kind of a story he tells. And he was saying, like, those West Coast trips just created a bond between Canucks players that he just really valued and appreciated. So he is our number 7. Number 6 is a fan favorite. His name is Kevin Bieksa, who ended up 6th in scoring for the Canucks. Did you know that Kevin was called for a roughing penalty 10 seconds into his very first shift as a Canuck? That's not really surprising, is it? But, you know, he is a very good player, and he developed. There was a lot of criticism about him early on about how risky he was and caused big-time scoring chances for opposing teams. But over the years, we literally saw him come around as an incredible defensive player. He was a warrior. He was a fighter. He stuck up for his teammates. He was a really good fighter, actually. I think it's because he had a boxing background. And in Kevin's very first game in the playoffs, NHL playoffs, he literally played over 55 minutes in that quadruple overtime game against Dallas that they ended up winning. It was so awesome. Now, Kevin Bieksa didn't have a no trade clause, so he was always kind of in that mix of trade rumors. And there was one where there was a huge feud between Mike Gillis, our general manager, and Brian Burke, our former general manager, who is now the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. on Leafs TV, their documentary of the 2009 entry draft. Brian Burke was involved in speculating that the Canucks had offered Bieksa to the Tampa Bay Lightning and Alex Burrows and a first round draft choice in exchange for Tampa Bay's number 2 overall pick, who ended up being Victor Hedman. Now, hindsight 2020, I mean, that would have been pretty good for Vancouver. I mean, Hedman's a super stud. But anyways, it is what it is. Now, that got aired, but it was immediately pulled from airing again, and the Maple Leafs were given a warning from the league. Shocking. Brian Burke in controversy, right? So, probably my favorite moment as a Kevin Bieksa fan was in the playoffs when he scored in double overtime against the San Jose Sharks. He was the only guy on the ice that knew that the puck had gone in. He was already celebrating. Everyone was like, what just happened? They look in the back of the net, and there is the goal from Bieksa. That knocked out San Jose. We went to the finals against the Boston Bruins. So he led that playoffs, all the defensemen in playoffs with 5 goals, and he averaged 25 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time. And it was revealed in that playoffs, and especially after that finals, that many Canucks were walking through and playing through injuries. Bieksa was one of those guys who suffered a bruised medial collateral ligament. I mean, how did he play? And how did he play effectively? You would have never have known that he was injured. And so that's some of the reasons why he's my number 6. All right, so number 5, Matthias Ohlund played 770 games. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Okay, he was drafted 13th in the 1994 NHL entry draft, and he lived up to the hype because he became a top pairing defenseman for most of his career, especially in Vancouver, despite facing significant games, missing significant games due to injury for the Canucks. Matthias took a puck to the right eye, forcing him to miss 38 games in the 99-2000 season. And when he had to have knee surgery, that forced him to miss the end of the 2007 and 2008 season. Like, this guy, again, another warrior, a guy who just battled, who played through injuries, was, if you are a Canucks fan, you are a fan of Matthias Ohlund. The guy was absolutely solid and a rock star on defense. Now, Ohlund helped the Canucks to reach the Western Conference semifinals 3 times, and that's like 770 games. Are you kidding me? With all those injuries, how did he do it? That's why he's my number 5. Now, let's go to my number 4, okay? Jyrki Lumme. Listen, 579 games played, 83 goals, 238 assists, 321 points. Lumme was drafted 57th overall in the 1986 NHL draft by the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, so he's played for Phoenix, he's played for Toronto, he's played, of course, for Vancouver, and he had those 321 points with the Canucks. He was a key part of the 93-94 team that lost in Game 7 to the Rangers in the final. Lumme leads all Canucks defensemen with 6 shorthanded goals, and so that's why he's my number 4 defenseman. All right, so we are now at the top 3 best defensemen, according to me, in Canucks history. Number 3 is Ed Jovanovski, a.k.a. Jovo or Jovo Cop. This guy was a beast on the ice. Played 434 games for us, had 234 points. Did you know that Ed Jovanovski was drafted number 1 overall by the Florida Panthers in the 1994 entry draft? He was acquired to Vancouver in the 7-player deal that sent Pavel Bure to the Florida Panthers, and we got Jovo. Now, Jovo and Ohlund were those rocks on defense during those West Coast Express years, and they helped the Canucks make the the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Wild, unfortunately losing that game in Game 7. Ed was one of those guys who was hard to play against, even though he was criticized for making some of those dumb passes right up the middle. He was really risky, right? But I think that everything else he did made up for those dumb plays. I mean, being offensive, sometimes you got to take risks. Now, some people are very critical. Now, Ed was hard to play against. He hit, he blocked shots, he got in fights, he put up important points, and he was one of my favorite defensemen watching the Vancouver Canucks. Now, side note, did you know what's crazy about the 1994 NHL entry draft is that Jovo went number 1, Olin went 13th, and Dan Kluche went 26th, and we had all three of them at the same time on the Vancouver Canucks. No wonder we had those years as very successful years, adding all the other guys as Nazem, Bertuzzi, Morrison, all those guys together. Those are special years. Alrighty, so now we're at the top 2, and number 2, I think for me is a no-brainer, Alex Edler. Listen, Alex Edler played in 925 games. Like, Edler played the most amount of games for the Canucks, and it's not close. And it turned into 14 seasons. Now listen to this. He's the all-time leader for Canucks defensemen in points with 409, with goals, in assists with 320, in hits, in shots, in block shots with 1,762 block shots. 925 games played. I mean, some of you have been critical about Edler in the past, but nobody can deny how long he's played for us, and he's broke all the Canucks records for all these things so far. So that's why he's my number 2. Now, that means my number 1 is a current player, Quinn Hughes. Are you kidding me right now? Some of you are saying it's just too early to put Quinn Hughes as number 1. Obviously, I disagree. He deserves to be at the top because he's the most skilled defenseman we have ever had play in our jersey. He is absolutely spectacular, stellar. His skating ability is a real treat for fans to watch him every single night. And so now, full disclosure, okay, and this is kind of wild while I have him number 1, because when we drafted Quinn Hughes, I personally was not happy. Now, most Canucks fans were, but I thought he was too small, and I didn't think he was going to have the durability. And I mean, I think I was triggered because all these Canucks defensemen have been injured, like Oland, and I just talked about him. The other guy, Tanev, right? So those are the guys that I was worried about. But can I just say something? Like, even though Evan Bouchard ended up getting drafted number 10 by the Oilers, and he's become a really great defenseman, I was completely wrong. Drafting Quinn Hughes at 7 was the right choice. I've never seen Jim Benning more excited when we drafted him. He was like giddy how excited he was that he drafted him. So far, Quinn Hughes has only played in 283 games, but he's tied with Kevin Bieksa, 6th in scoring with 241 points. Now, Bieksa played in 597 games for Vancouver. This shows how offensively talented Quinn Hughes is, and that he averages, for his career, almost 24 minutes of ice time a night. Now, Rick Tocchet loves him. The fans love him. And that's why he's my number 1. So thanks so much for watching this video, going through all 10. I really hope that you love this. Post in the comments who your top 10 are. Tell me who I'm right on, who I'm wrong about. Give me some fun facts. And thanks so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. And of course, always go Canucks. Go.